friends, welcome back to another episode of the Field and Garden Podcast. It is your friend in flowers, and I have a friend here with me today. And she's been here before, and I know many of you will recognize her, but let's all welcome Gretel to the podcast. Hey, Gretel.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
This is Gretel Adams of Sunny Meadows Flower Farm, and Gretel and I have been friends for a really long time. She and her husband, Steve, are instructors for one of our big school courses. They're just stellar. They're becoming long-time successful flower farmers in this cut flower industry, and we just love having them to be a part of our family here. So before we jump into talking to Gretel and catching up, because they have had a lot of changes in the farm over the last, I'm going to guess and say 2 to 4 years, maybe.
Yeah.
But first, friends, I just want to remind everybody that the Field and Garden Podcast is brought to you by thegardenersworkshop.com, which is home base to everybody that wants to grow cut flowers, whether it's for profit or for pleasure. So be sure and visit thegardenersworkshop.com to equip you, to help lead you in learning, and we'd love to have you become part of our family. So Gretel, let's just jump in here. And first, why don't you give folks the lay of the land, where you are, kind of how that all started, and then we'll go into all the other stuff.
Yeah. So I'm Gretel Adams. My husband, Steve, and I started Sunny Meadows Flower Farm, which now we're coming up on our 20-year anniversary, which is crazy to me. Somebody was like, now they've been farming for 2 decades. And I was like, whoa, with that. But we started young. I just turned 40. So yeah, when we were at the conferences, I think when we first met, we were the young ones in the room, trying to figure out like if this was a career path that was possible. So, our goal was always to show folks that it is possible to have both people, both family members like on the farm working full time and have it be like a successful business. So we are in Columbus, Ohio. And so we're zone like 6A, 6B. We've got a few different plots. So it is a little bit different in some of the places that are a little bit further out from the city. So the home farm is on 10 acres and sits like kind of within the city limits. That's where our farm stand is. That's where the office is. That's where we started. We used to live on the farm too. And so we were, here for 17 years and just moved out. That was one of the changes that happened over the past few years, was us moving off the home farm. But, so the home farm is where the office is and where the farm stand is and where all the florists pick up and where all the flowers come to for processing before they go out the door. So all of the other, like some of the other rented plots are just like a field in the middle of fields and don't have like infrastructure there. But the place that we just moved to in Pickerington is about 20 minutes away from the home farm. And that's 30 acres. And we did move into the house on that plot. So, as we were like establishing there, it wasn't the farm before, but now there's hydrangeas and peonies and winterberry and things happening over there. We're having some issues finding water. So the plan is for the dahlias to go over there, but we've got to probably dig a couple more wells. But yeah, we sell mostly to florists. We'll get into more details, I'm sure, about what's going on the farm. But so just a little bit about our sales outlets. We sell mostly to florists. We ship nationwide. So that has really like expanded our reach to florists and designers. And then we make bouquets for grocery stores, and then have the farm stand. And then retail, we have online flower sales that we can ship or deliver and sell like dahlia tubers and live plants and ranunculus corms and all kinds of things that help us, when we don't have flowers. We have flowers about March through Thanksgiving-ish, and then we do Christmas wreaths. So we don't really have much blooming January, February. So we talk about that a lot in the class. Yeah.
I'm tired hearing all the things that y'all are doing. But you know what I want to say, because people say to us too, it's like, oh my gosh, y'all do so many different things. That's what it takes to create a year-round business, wouldn't you say? I mean, it's like you're
Yeah.
not going to flower farm for
Hmm.
6 months out of the year and sell enough to be sustainable as a career path for, as you described earlier, for your family,
Hmm.
um, with help.
Yeah.
That's just not going to happen, right? So that is so incredible. So, what my big burning question first is, because I've asked y'all this, Steve and Gretel have been on the podcast multiple times and I've done lots of lives with them. And the burning question always is, so how many greenhouses do you all have now?
So I think we're at 20. I think it was 18. Yeah, we put up a house actually that is just for dahlia tuber storage. So we bought a house. Yeah, it's 20, yeah, because the numbers go up to 18, and then we have the seed house and now the tuber house, so 20. The tuber house we put up because previously we would store the tubers in there, divide them, and then put them into the cooler. But then we would always have a crunch of time where like two outdoor tulips start blooming and the tubers are still in the cooler. So, we wanted to like build a facility, and we talk about this in our class, but we get a lot of things from like greenhouse auctions, like businesses, that are going out of business and tearing stuff down. So it was a lot cheaper for us to put up a greenhouse structure. It has white plastic on it. It has a gravel floor with the goal of it being concreted in the future. But we're going to let the dahlia tubers make some more money and pay for their own concrete before we put the concrete down, because it's a pretty big space to concrete. But right now we made it so the skid steer can drive in there, since we can't like move pallet jacks around. But the idea is that that's where they'll be stored, and that's where they'll be like divided. We used to bring them up to the barn and divide them, but it's nice in the winter when the sun's out and you're in the greenhouse and not, in the barn with it all closed up because it's cold. So it gives, yeah, it's better for morale, because in the winter, tuber dividing is hard, like, and it's what you do sometimes all day, like multiple days in a row. So sometimes sunshine makes all the difference.
It's true. So, I didn't mention earlier. So, Steve and Gretel, the name of their course is Grow and Cut Flowers in Hoop and Greenhouses. And that's why it's always like, so how many houses do you have now? Because what I want to hit home to people is they have such incredible depth of knowledge and experience. I mean, when we get Steve on here with Gretel, we could talk for days about the challenges that they have had to figure out and work through. Steve, I think, he's the one that finds the solutions to issues, and he is just so driven that way. And it just makes him a brilliant guy. And then, of course, he has a brilliant wife. And
Thank you.
so yeah, I mean, y'all have just done such extraordinary things. And I mean, there's so many pieces to your business. So it's like, okay, there's multiple locations. Let's not even dive into the HR deal of how many people. I mean, I do want to talk about how many people work for you, but that's a whole nother, not
Hmm.
can of worms, but it is. They need support. They need, like you
Hmm.
just said, the sunshine. It's like they need care, just like the flowers out in the field do.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
so what I want to speak to first is tell us, so you field grow and house grow, correct? And
Hmm.
there's greenhouses and hoop houses. Can you kind of just cover that, what your growing situation is?
Hmm. So we have currently right now between the plots, some of it is cover cropped right now for like rotation, but there's about like 60 acres like in production space that we can use. Now, I think it's about more like 40 that's like in production because of the way that we sort of rotate through the fields. We are probably going to lose access to another one of our rented
Uh,
fields here soon. So I think there'll be maybe less of an opportunity for as much resting or, an adaptation of our like growing, repertoire or whatever. So we have 4 locations. The home farm, um, a field across the street that we call Randy's. That was new last year for the first time. So we had a lot of things change with access to rented land. And that's one of the challenges with like being farmers in a city that is expanding. And, you know, the plots can sell for way more than a farmer could make farming it. So it's harder to find. And that's why rented space is kind of has been a part of how our business has grown. We have another rented plot. That's the one we're probably going to lose access to after next year. That is where all the dahlias are. And that used to be where all the field production was too, but they had taken half of the field back basically. So like their production is expanding. So like they were just planting as we were digging tubers. So it's like they're going to take over the front field, I think, pretty soon. And kick us out. And then the new place is 6 acres of woodies currently. So it's 30 acres, but there's 8 acres of woods. So it's not all production space. We built a barn there with the idea of, you know, we've got dahlia tuber digging and flower production happening and like winter berry harvest. So it's like just kind of needing the space for all of those things. So yeah, it's a lot of logistics of figuring out how to, you know, not everybody drives. That's like on our team. So then it's just like making sure that there's like enough drivers and enough like vehicles. And yeah, so there's a lot of logistics, which is why like for Steve and I, the team is kind of split. Like he's in charge of the field crew and I'm in charge of the barn crew, which is basically like in the office. And so that's kind of like my team does everything from harvest out the door. And sometimes we're pulling in field crew for bouquet making and stuff like projects on big days. And then the field crew is harvesting. And then if they're not helping us in the barn to get flowers out the door the next day, then they're like the ones doing the planting and weeding and like cultivation and tractor work and that kind of stuff. We had 28 people this year, which is a lot of folks, but it's kind of what it takes for our,
Is that year round? Do they all stay year round or do some go home?
So we have 8 folks that are H2A currently. So our H2A workers are here from Mexico for 10 months of the year. So they're here from February through November. So they're about to go home here soon. They leave like the week of Thanksgiving and then come back kind of end of February. So the way the visa is set up is it's like a temporary 10 months is the longest that they can be here, which is a long time for them to be away from their families. But for us, it is a way for us to have like seasonal return employees. So now, you know, like some of these folks have been with us for 7 years. So it makes a huge difference in like farm systems and not having to kind of start over every year.
You know, the one thing that comes to mind that I think that some people would probably be interested in hearing what your analogy is. So rented land, which I know that many people that have grown their farm, especially, I mean, Jenny Love was in that same situation. You know, she's on the outskirts of Philly, and she had some rented land. I don't know if she is still using any of that, but she kind of lost. She thought she was, secured on that rented land. But in fact, that didn't work out happening, and she was able to purchase some. But don't you feel like rented land is a needed step in growing businesses, potentially to walk that fine line of being as close as you can be to where the customers are and not being in the middle of nowhere and have to drive 2 hours.
Well, and that's what I mean. When we were looking for places, like when we found this place in Pickerington, we got really lucky. It was an estate sale. It was the original farming like family, you know, that had sold off all the 5-acre plots in the front. So it's like the property is called a keyhole property where it goes back long and narrow, and then the field opens up behind other people's backyards, basically. So there were kind of limited uses, like it couldn't be developed because of the way that the road frontage has to be in the township or whatever. So we got really lucky that it's only 20 minutes away. But yeah, I mean, renting land has been an essential piece of how we grew our farm. And, I think when we were going through everything, having to move everything a couple years ago when we bought this new place, we moved 6 acres of woodies. And so that was a rented plot that we thought was a permanent like situation. That was not. And so I think people were like, why would you why would you plant that stuff on rented land? And you're like, well, that's because otherwise, like, where else would we have put it? Like, at least these plants grew out to, like, they started from, rooted cuttings that were 6, 12 inches or whatever, and kind of like got grown out to bigger plants. And we were able to like use the dahlia tuber digger that we have to like dig most of the stuff. The only thing that we left behind was the smoke bush, because they've got like a deep tap root that didn't like to be disturbed, and the digger like wasn't pulling them out, so it's like we moved all those plants. Everybody in the nursery industry was like, it's too late to dig, the plants are too big, they're not going to make it. And we were like, if it's either have zero because we don't try to dig them, or try to dig them and see what happens. So so most of the loss was only about 5 to 10% like of the plants. But what we've realized now, we've just experienced 2 years of like record wet spring and then record drought summer. So like for woody shrub like plants that are still trying to establish, it's like they get so much rain in the spring that they're like flooded, and then the summer comes and they get no rain at all, and they're still trying to like grow these roots. So that's actually where we've seen the most loss, is like the hydrangeas are just like not happy in their new home, which is why we dug a well, only got 30 gallons per minute, and dug like 180 feet or something. And so talked to NRCS, they said an irrigation pond wouldn't work. There's a lot of fields around us that have a lot of drainage tile, and there's huge trees in the woods. So like we're still learning a lot about the soil. So it's like, this is our spot now, that we own, and we're still figuring things out after 20 years of farming. And yeah, every plot has its own like access to utilities and like soil structure, and so just kind of figuring that out.
So what would your words of wisdom be to someone that is considering, renting, leasing a spot, moving forward, in a nutshell?
I would say, like, know that even if you have a contract, that like that landowners have the power, which is unfortunate, but it's still worth it to like take the risk to help like grow your business. And I think, the way that we found opportunities was, and this is something else that Steve's like really good at, is like, we'll drive around and see a plot, and he'll just like stop by, or write a letter, or try and find a phone number for somebody in the community, call around to other farmers. Like the place that we rent that the dahlias are is another nursery, so it's like we just reached out to everybody in the industry around us, and we're kind of like, hey, if you have any resources, like, does anybody know about anything that would be a potential like opportunity for like land access, and or like greenhouses that we found used. Like we'll just see a business that's shut down, and you're like, well, they're not using that greenhouse. Like, I wonder if the new people that are on that property want it gone,
Right.
And I think that's just like, because we're first generation farmers and neither of us went to school for agriculture, the ASCFG and meeting other like mentors and, people that we can just like ask, I feel like all of that has come from just like being vulnerable and being willing to like, put yourself out there and have those conversations with people, and figure out
Don't you think,
what to
I
learn
think
from that.
what you just said, having conversations, it's like you don't hunker down on your computer and hold up doing online searches. You have to get out and talk to people and get your face and your name out in the community. All right. So tell us a little bit more about what crops do you grow in your houses that perhaps you never grow out in the field anymore because you
Hmm.
have the houses, even though they may grow out in the field just with not such a great, end result.
Hmm. So Lysianthus is the biggest one. Like I know that some folks grow it outside, but for us, it's the biggest crop that we grow in the greenhouse as far as quantity like of plants goes. And so it's worth it for us to know that they're not going to get rained into and ruined after you've spent, especially since they take such a long like growth period. So Lizzie's, I think talk about this in the class with the mums, but like we grow all of our mums in a heated greenhouse space. I know some folks grow them unheated, but we just had problems with condensation like dripping into the flowers and kind of ruining some of the flower heads. Um, Dusty Miller, we always grow inside. And then actually the newest one, which has been pretty interesting, is Status. So we've had like I know it's a basic flower, but we do a lot of dried flowers and we need like those colors. So I don't think there's like purple Status in here. And we've had, because of the drought, and we've had no field production the past 2 years, even though we've like planted, two like 700 feet of it, and then we get just like a few buckets here or there. Like it's not happy out in the field. So we've been planting it in the fall from seed, and also doing Taki has a like mix that we were doing the tissue culture, and then Taki was kind of like, hey, we would send you free seed to see like, if you can get the seeded stuff to kind of behave the same way in a greenhouse. And it does. I mean, we started cutting off of the Status in for Easter, and they just got
Wow.
3 buckets from it's a 150-foot bed. They just got like 3 to 5 buckets or something yesterday. So it's like we've been cutting off of this patch of Status like for the whole season, tissue culture and the stuff from seed, which has been pretty interesting. So freesia we like is always in the heat. Let's see, I'm trying to think. I mean, there's a lot of things every season. There's a lot of things. This year we grew a ton of marigolds in the hoop and in the greenhouse. I think the stuff in the hoop will probably die tonight because I think it's gonna, or tomorrow night, it's gonna be like 20 something. So I think the marigolds will probably be done in the hoop, but in the heated greenhouse space, just because we're connected with folks in the community that celebrate Diwali and Dia de los Muertos. So, and the field ones don't make it to those holidays. So we decided to like focus production on that. So that's been a big addition to fall, because before our bouquets this time of year would mostly be cabbage and mums, maybe some branchy stuff, with willow, or maybe there's some eucalyptus left, but the marigolds help have another item for bouquets too.
So tell us basically a little bit more about how you're selling all these flowers, because y'all are producing a boatload of flowers.
Yeah. So our biggest sales outlet is to florists. So we have, I don't know, I think like maybe 800 florists or something on our list that we ship nationwide with UPS and through Southwest. So actually some of our biggest like shipping customers are other flower farmers, which has been really interesting for us as the business has grown, that they're like using us to help supplement what they're growing, whether they're doing design workshops or they're doing events, or like they don't do the season extension that we do, or they just don't have the volume of, maybe they need 100 bunches of white dahlias and they only have 20 or something like that. So that's been a really interesting like part of, because part of what we do in the industry is to help teach people and to help like, it's just continuing to support domestic stuff, domestic flowers, even ordering them from us instead of getting them like from their traditional like wholesaler. So that's, florists get the priority of specific colors, specific flowers, when I'm doing availability, I do it for 3 weeks out. And so we already have those like sales, for the next couple weeks of what's already sold. So like the florists get first pick because they get 3 weeks out. The grocery, we just contact the week before and say, hey, this is what we're going to have. And so if the florists have bought all of something, then the grocery stores don't get it. And that's what is helpful about mixed bouquets, is because it helps to absorb those things. If it's a big wedding week and all our white stuff gets bought, then the bouquets are nice and colorful that go to the grocery store.
Right.
So it's almost like if you grew tomato, if you were a veggie grower and you were making salsa or something, it's like the bouquets are like the value added thing that we can do. And especially like with the dried stuff has become a really big part of our production too. And we continue to like need more space to dry more and store more, and, so that we have more to use. But that's another like value added thing that helps, use up the things that if we grow in a larger quantity and don't need it all that week, then we can harvest it and hang it and, sell it as dried.
So how do y'all sell dried? Is it just wreaths, or do you do bunches, and who is buying that?
So they're on the list for our florist, all of the bunches that we have. We started doing like a bulk box lot too, which has been helpful, like, to move through more like volume of stuff. So we have, and then they're also listed on the retail site by the bunch and like in the box lots or whatever, if someone was, doing a big event or something. So we do both like bunches and finished stuff, like bouquets and wreaths and things like that. So every year, like it takes us, the wreaths get a revamp based on what got dried that season. So that's why this one's hanging here, because we're pretty excited that we just got through like redoing all of the like photos based on, what the like color mix is going to look like this year based on what comes out of the field. So yeah, so that's been another like interesting addition to the repertoire, but it's mostly going to florists, most of our stuff. But we make a ton of grocery store bouquets. We have 11 stores that we direct store deliver here in Columbus. There's 3 in Cincinnati, and then which is about 2 hours away, and then we deliver to a grocery distribution center up in Cleveland, which is another 2 hours in the other direction, and they have 20 stores, so they can take like 2 trucks of flowers a week. We've got like our sprinter vans.
Gretel, I'm tipping my hat to you guys. Unbelievable. And I know that you are the brainchild of making all of that mesh together. And, it's like people listening to this, what I want you, don't be overwhelmed that this is what you have to do. This is just the possibilities, and one thing that I just came off of doing, promotion of my course and just really helping people to understand you need to have more than one market focus. It's like so often we hear from people, oh yeah, well, I only sell on Saturday, so I'm cutting all week and saving it up. It's like you need more. Do not put all your eggs in one basket. And I think that you guys are just a perfect example of how that has launched you to just build this business into such a really big size. So I do want us to like run through about your course, but tell us a little bit about your retail. You've mentioned your retail platform a couple of times. So what are you selling to maybe the home gardener, to other growers? What is on there?
So the wholesale site is like, if you would need a vendor's license and to be a business, like in order to buy from us. So it is like kind of password protected unless we get your, like you can apply and we get your paperwork and you can get in, and that's like wholesale pricing. The retail website is, we quit doing the farmers market. And so in 2020 and had done the farmers market, I think for 14 years or something like that. So we wanted things to still like be accessible to people. So the retail site is fresh flowers, dried stuff, live plants, ranunculus corms, dahlia tubers, and like, selling Thanksgiving arrangements, and like, so we can local deliver, or we can ship that stuff, or we have it available in the farm stand for pickup. But the farm stand is like a little self-serve farm stand. So we don't do like pre-orders for like DIY buckets or anything like that. It's more just like you get what's out in the farm stand. But the benefit of coming to the farm stand is that you get like the custom stuff that isn't, doesn't fit the picture of what's on the
Right.
website or whatever. So, and then we always do a holiday, like this year we always do a holiday open house, which is like the first Saturday in December. But this year we decided to spread it out. And so instead of doing one huge event, we're going to be open the weekend of Thanksgiving to start with like holiday decor, and then just kind of like keep everything set up through December, to help spread it out and to also capture the people who want to decorate like Thanksgiving weekend. So that's kind of our retail. Our retail shipping of flowers started during COVID because we quit the farmer's market. I have Lyme disease, so we were pretty particular about like the bubble during the time. So even when market came back on, like we didn't want to like risk it. And so we started retail shipping. And when we came out of that situation, like when people started coming back to the farm stand, they were like, your flowers are what helped us like make it through those times. And that was like, okay, like, people in the community still like need us to be doing retail,
Right.
and we want to be like accessible to them, and not just be wholesale.
So before we dive into you telling us a little bit about how you're sharing your knowledge with other growers, tell me about the shortest person in your family. How old is he now?
Levon is he's 2.5. He'll be 3 in March.
Wow.
Yeah, it's happening so fast, and he loves being here on the farm and loves the tractors and all the folks here. So he's with my mom a few days a week. So he's here, 1 or 2 days a week here on the farm. And he's growing really fast, and has, it's crazy. I felt like 2.5. I was like, you were a baby, and now I'm having like a full conversation with you. So it's been really fun. He's full energy, so I am tired after, working all day and then chasing him around, but it's worth it. And yeah, it's been a lot of fun to see him kind of experience the farm. We were digging tubers, and he was like, "Oh, those are muddy." I'm like, yeah, those are muddy, buddy. He's like, "There's a lot of them." I'm like, yeah, there is a lot of them.
What a little boy's dream life. I mean, tractors and dump trucks probably, and I
Uh-huh.
mean, just a lot of darn fun. Um, so tell us a little bit about what someone could expect to learn from your online course, which I'll just say the name again. It's Grow and Cut Flowers in Hoop and Greenhouses. And what I want to say about this course is what we hear from students, because it's been out for several years, is that even the people that take it and then realize they don't want to have a hoop or a greenhouse for whatever reason, the depth of information from the crop planning definitely is helpful, even if you don't have structures. There's just
Mhm.
so much great information in this, and it's a lifetime access, which means you're done for life. You don't have to look any further. So tell us all about your course.
Yeah, so the course is geared towards from beginner to advanced. So like Lisa said, you can kind of take from it what you need at the moment, and then sort of use it as a reference guide. Especially they like made it searchable by like the transcript. So, if you're looking about like information about snaps, you can like put that in, and it'll like pull up all the times that we're like talking about that. So I think, as far as like accessibility, us talking about the scale that we're at right now, we never planned to be this big. The business has just grown every year. We started out just the two of us, just doing farmers markets. having jobs like off the farm and out there harvesting with headlamps to like get stuff in time, like we did all that too. So I think that sometimes people are like, kind of intimidated by us being sort of like medium scale, but the information is definitely like transferable from
Oh,
beginning
yeah.
through advanced.
I agree.
So we start off with talking about the different types of structures and just sort of like the location and things to think about, like utilities and things like that. And then we go through each season, spring, summer, fall, and talk about the crops that we grow. We give all of like the greenhouse weeks and like transplant weeks that we have for each crop. In the spring, there's a lot of talk about ranunculus because I know that that's what most people start with in the tunnels, and for good reason, because it's a good it's a good way to get your return on investment if you're putting up a structure, your first structure for sure. And then Lizzie's in the summer, and then fall, just talking about like season extension stuff. And so I think if you sign up for like our newsletter through the Gardener's Workshop on their website, some of those resources are coming soon to some like PDFs of like post frost flowers and like what to plant in October, to like prepare yourself for spring. And then the other 2 weeks are more about greenhouse care. So it's like talking about ventilation and sanitation, pests and diseases, integrated pest management. And I think that the last 2 weeks are kind of what people get a little bit like scared by, because they're kind of like, if all these issues could happen, like, is it even worth it? And it's like, well, not all those issues are going to happen to you at once. We're just explaining to you the things that we've encountered over the years and just kind of like what we've learned and how you can, make your systems better. So we talk about scouting, we talk about like crop planning, doing enterprise budgets, and just making sure things are the most like profitable crops in the greenhouse. So thinking about like not utilizing that space to grow like sunflowers and zinnias, like think about things you can cram in a lot of volume, the pre-chilled tulips, like lilies, things that can help extend your season. Also depends on when your season starts. So if you're not doing a market that starts until, or if you're doing a market that doesn't start until May, then you don't need to be growing stuff in the spring for March, but maybe you can go through holiday time. So for us, it's like just kind of trying to give as much of the things that we've learned so that you can take it from there and hopefully learn from some of our mistakes and the things that we've put in place. And we talk about like, farming keeps you humble because there's always something new to figure out as soon as you think you've got it all figured out. And like, we're still there at that point and have been doing this for 20 years. Like, we're still figuring things out. And I feel like it's kind of the same way. It's like once you become an adult and then you're like, oh, wait, they don't have it all figured out. Like, I thought I'd get to a point where I like had it all figured out. It's the same thing with business where you're just like, I thought I'd get to a point where this would like be easier, but it's like, it's not. There's more people, there's like other risks to take, and there's still things, like I think a couple years ago we had broad mites for the first time, and it's like probably not the first time we had them, but the first time that we knew the symptoms and recognized what was happening and like could treat them. And people sometimes are like, I don't have bugs, and it's like, well, they either haven't found you yet because you're new in that location, or maybe you don't know like what you're looking for. And so talking about the pests and diseases of just sort of like what to look out for, and how to like catch things before it's a full-blown like infection of something. When you see a few aphids, then that's time for like putting some IPM in, or thinking about if you see a little bit of botrytis, thinking about ventilating better or removing some of those leaves or whatever before it's the whole bed like is covered. And I think, so as many resources as we can provide. I was a social worker before I was a farmer, so I'm all about resources. So that's like, I think that's why the class is so like dense, is because I just was trying to like get as much stuff into that amount of time as we possibly could for people.
Well, it's an amazing course. And I think the best part about online courses, versus going to a conference, which that is definitely a big piece of. I mean, you need to do all the things. You need to read
Mm-hmm.
books, you need to read magazines, you need to be on groups, you need to, have
Mm-hmm.
courses. Is that the online courses are yours for life? And you can go back, as like you're saying, what might not be a problem today, you may just skim over that problem. But
Mm-hmm.
guess what? Next year, when that problem blows, then you have a resource to come back and visit. And it's so true. It's like you never arrive. There's no end to the problems. I mean, it's like what you're saying is with each step in any business, whether it's a baby step of, okay, I'm going to start selling to supermarkets, but I'm only going to do one supermarket.
Mm-hmm.
Then, you're going to face new things that you didn't face just going to a farmer's market. There's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of great things. I loved going from farmers markets to
Mm-hmm.
supermarkets. I mean, having your flowers pre-sold, but while
Mm-hmm.
you're making the bouquets instead of praying for good weather, right? Um,
Yeah.
so Gretel, if what would you like to say as we wrap this up? What is the biggest benefit? I mean, I know that you probably get it too, but we get people reaching out to us every day. I think the not knowing where to put a house and which type of house to actually purchase is a big, big problem for people.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the fact that your course tackles that out of the gate. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so, what would you like the takeaway be for people about encouraging them that you can make money selling flowers, which we know you can? It's about how you go about it, right?
Huh.
And what the benefits of your course is.
Um, yeah, I mean, I think that if expanding your production by having greenhouses was something that you've even like considered, that this is something that would be a good tool to have for like exploring that option and thinking about crops and thinking about the markets that you have and where these flowers would go, since it is the most expensive real estate, and like what that means in your region as far as like are there other growers around you that are doing that season extension that can get you into selling to the florist or selling to the grocery stores before the field growers like have stuff? And just thinking about like the advantages of doing the season extension, having year round work for people, definitely for us has meant better employee retention, which means like, having folks that have been here for 7, 8 years now. And that makes a huge difference in the not having to start from scratch every spring, like with new employees. And so just thinking about the other things, like not only the like flower sales, but what extending the season could mean for like the future of your farm. Because for us, that was one of the biggest, when we first had greenhouses, we were growing salad greens and carrots and stuff, kind of Elliott Coleman style in the winter before we knew about how to like use the houses for, growing ranunculus. And we definitely had a whole house full of lilies that we had planted in the ground and tried to perennialize, and like did like, yeah, had larkspur and like sunflowers, things that like I feel like now we would never put in there in that way, but it took us like doing it and figuring out that that wasn't the best way. So I think, yeah, if you think you could sell ranunculus to your accounts, then it's probably worth it for you to put up a tunnel and, have the structure and work through that, how that changes the farm's availability.
I think it's just another piece of the pie. Once you're committed to doing this, is that it's your business. It's a great next step for many people,
Mm-hmm.
I think. So Gretel, thanks for being here and sharing your once again, and that's quite a beautiful wreath behind you if you're
Oh,
watching the
thank you.
video of this. I think that's a piece of selling stuff online that people, until you're faced with it, you don't realize the imaging that has to match what you're actually offering. I mean, if you put one flower in there that you're not going to have available, that's a problem ultimately when
Mm-hmm.
you go to sell them, right? So y'all are just hitting it on so many levels. I just am
Thank you.
so in awe of everything that y'all are doing. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for your kind words.
So friends, you can find Steve and Gretel's course is for sale year round on our website, thegardenersworkshop.com. We have an online course category, and you can go in there and actually read the syllabus, which is just the table of contents with details, and see everything that's covered in there. And, you know, if you're even thinking about adding a house of any size, shape, or anywhere, I would highly recommend that you go in and investigate. And you'll find all of that at thegardenersworkshop.com. And I just thank you guys for once again choosing to take a listen, because I know you have a lot of choices these days, and we appreciate each and every one of our listeners. And thank you, Gretel, for being here, and we will call it a day. Ciao.
Bye.